Before I get into the meat of the discussion here, I want to preface this by mentioning that I do not condone the actions of doxing, swatting, harassment, vitriolic behavior, words or otherwise, or threats of any kind, regardless of anyone's placement on the political spectrum or where someone stands on any issue. It was never okay, and is not okay now in any context, and no matter what, it won't ever be okay. Pushback and debate is always welcome as long as it's constructive and moves the conversations forward. Progress is always welcome, but it should never devolve into harassment, vitriol, threats, or carrying out on doxing or swatting. Mention this unequivocally and without exception. Of course, there are times when emotions can get the best of us and we can falter, as we all do. But we have to do the best we can, and we have to make sure that people are aware about our convictions and morals when it comes to what is too far. So it should be of no surprise that when former senior writer of Kotaku and current Rolling Stone contributor Alyssa Mercante, known to antagonize several YouTube personalities that she feels have penetrated the stranglehold that the elitists had on the gaming journalistic landscape, claimed that her boyfriend was doxxed by what one would assume was Kiwi Farms. As you see on the tweet, she only said the farms as a clue, that I would condemn this as well, and I do. Make no mistake that this is not okay. Yes, she has done several things wrong in her revenge plot against those whose very existence is a detriment to the well-being of the bottom lines of the elite in gaming journalism in her eyes. I have thought since at the beginning that she should just stick to covering games and not dive into the rabbit hole that is the culture war or the elements that come alongside it. Yes, there are times in which both sides of that war tend to take things to the fringe and then some. Ever since the fallout of us knowing who Sweet Baby Inc. was to the debate about DEI institutions and firms, we've needed to see the back and forth that these two sides do, without any indication that the rest of us, those who want to have a serious discussion about how to achieve progressive ideals and to allow equal representation in entertainment spaces without delving into ham-fisted preachy moral lessons that destroy immersion in the properties that they're included in, or corporate entities feeling as though they need to play catch-up to show that they are indeed inclusive instead of just allowing creators to create their passion projects and for the representation to come organically, will ever get the chance to say our case for what we have an issue with. There are plenty of things you can criticize Alyssa for, and there is plenty that she needs to learn about if she wants to be seen as a serious player in the journalistic scene. First step, stop these petty revenge plots. But going this extra mile to threaten, defame, and to dox is never okay. Though this shouldn't be confused with pushback and counterpoints to her words, and anybody, herself included, should know the difference between those two things. The act of saying to someone that they should watch your backs for there might be someone behind you ready to stab you in said back is not something that needs to introduce itself into any rhetoric. Keep in mind that these are debates about video games and entertainment. Though we know that there are more serious issues in the world, we tend to get too carried away with how we conduct ourselves in these debates, and that has happened for years. Liking one system over another, or that you didn't like a show for whatever reason, should never be a motivator for someone to send a threat against someone's family. And yes, that is something that's happened several times and for several years now. We've allowed these kinds of people into this space for far too long. And the only reason you don't hear about these people as often as you might is because by giving these people any kind of glorification, you run the risk of others seeing it and believing that they can get their 15 minutes of fame if they do something similar. Make no mistake, I have gotten these as well. Depriving the person of the proverbial oxygen does a lot to keep these copycats from being able to capitalize on your willingness to make them into celebrities. Unless, of course, provoking the hornet's nest is what you need to farm your own content, as we've seen some people do within the past 10 or so years. Looking at you, Anita Sarkeesian. It is not only me, though, that has condemned this latest act. Some of those that Alyssa considers her own ideological enemies have also mentioned that they too condemn such acts, and they should be commended for it. From Master of the TDS to Vara Dark, the latter was ready to accept Alyssa's challenge to a fight at one point in time, to even Smash TT, who she is currently filing suit against, and even Mark Kern has come out and condemned these acts. You might think that these would be the last people someone on Alyssa's side would want to hear from when looking for people to condemn the acts. But alas, if you read the clickhole article of "The Worst Person You Know Just Made a Great Point," you will know that even loud, sensational people who thrive on creating content about the culture war and the quote rage bait can be right on some issues. Even if you cannot stand the people I just mentioned, you should at least acknowledge that they are correct in condemning the acts. They took the high road in this case, which is to put their condemnation on record and make it official as to where they stand. However, one post from Mark Kern was also correct in what he said. Quote, "This is interesting. I have several tweets and am on several videos saying that no one should harass Alyssa. Meanwhile, she has never said the same of me, encouraged the opposite, and in fact hound down JT's wife. But if she's willing to tweet nobody should harass JT, I agree to give her the benefit of the doubt on zero receipt doxing claim. At no point have either Alyssa or any of her followers ever put it on record or made it official the idea that they condemned any actual acts of threat or doxing or anything similar against those same ideological enemies. This is all it takes, to be honest. Some indication that they consider those acts going too far. But no one on that side can even do that much. Why can't they? It shouldn't be just understood without needing to verbalize it. It needs to be clear and concise, without any exceptions. Period. End of story. No tolerance given. Even if you think your followers and readers should understand your position, make it official, because that gives them the indication you don't condone the acts, and you give a way to resource back to your words in order to absolve yourself of responsibility should the issues come about. Because, as we all say, no one person can control a audience of several thousand people. You're always going to get one or two bad apples, no matter how well you try or how well you are able to control the majority of your audience. But, and I say this as someone who has called out both sides of this culture war in the past, and there are several examples of me doing just that on a variety of mediums, Alyssa and her followers seem to be incapable of doing even that much. In fact, they seem to be encouraging such behavior. Her fans and followers have not only attacked anyone who dares to challenge anyone in that camp, but they have also slid into the replies to bash him repeatedly. From the perceived notion that YouTuber Admidian has fabricated several stories in recent weeks, all accusations unproven by the way, to saying that Vara Dark has not played games on her channel despite her showing several times over that she has a channel full of Let's Plays, and Mark Kern for all the legitimate criticisms you can give him, and yes, I do agree he is very polarizing. The act of continuing to level that a meme accusation that can be proven false by just using Google and knowyouMeme.com is entirely factual and can be objectively proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and asking where is your game is the only response they seem to have speaks volumes. Remember, the worst person you know just made a great point. If these people do find some common ground with who they perceive as their enemies, they have to seemingly take a jackhammer and sledgehammer to make sure that there is a division so common ground has no chance to form. And speaking of sledgehammers, one particular person seems to not understand when to stop. A day or so ago, a user made reference to a well-known fan of Alyssa's, saying that he made the comment toward her that you now see on your screen, and no, I am not going to repeat it. Right after the post in question was found and screen capped, the user, who you might have seen pop out of nowhere in your X feed if you are following the entire DEI drama in whole or in part this past year, and is well known to say more disparaging comments toward her ideological opponents, deleted it. He has been accused several times of doing just enough to toe the line of what is considered TRS violations, and this is yet another act in the long repertoire of acts that this user specifically has committed, notwithstanding the usage of alts in order to further their standing on X and to make sure the posts of his friends and followers never get community noted by tanking said community notes and make the person that had written them not be able to make any more community notes until they were to get their rating raised even further in order to unlock the ability to make community notes yet again. Yet, I have not seen the person or anyone associated with them once say that they do not want to actually see Mark Kern get hurt or say that they take back the words de Coyote. If he did have some opposition to her words, then he could have done so without delving into such vitriol. And here's the odd thing. I actually agree with him on a few points that he's made on certain issues. But it's when you litter your timeline with stuff like this, it makes it harder for someone to support your points, especially when we are never allowed to criticize them without their followers coming into your timeline to say some of the worst things you will ever hear aimed at you, with no effort for anyone to call the dogs off at some point, and to intimidate you into being quiet about their actions. With that having been in place, it's no wonder why the other other side feels that these acts are fair game. What else would you think if you found that one side is trying to play by the rules, written or not, and trying to reel in their fringe users, but the other side is cheering on people jumping off that fringe cliff into the unknown and committing acts that would have them arrested? And yes, that user has been arrested before. In the minds of the person that doxed Alyssa's boyfriend, they are just giving her a receipt from some of the acts she has been accused of because, hey, eye for an eye, right? So no, I do not condone either the dox on Alyssa Mercante or the dox of Smash JT or the words that Airbag used against Coyote, regardless of the context. Context does not matter in these scenarios. We should condemn them unequivocally. And no, I don't want this to be me picking one side over another here in this culture war. I feel like the hostility needs to cease. We can debate the need for DEI firms or wokeness or how characters look in games, or anything in between, without resorting to people wanting to hit others with sledgehammers or to tell people to enact euthanasia on themselves or something similar. Make that a 2025 resolution. Become better at handling yourself when bringing up these topics, and evict the people that have been living rent-free in your heads. Only then will progress and representation of games and elsewhere get a serious discussion that will, in the end, benefit everybody. Until next time, to be continued.